Alrighty, welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4. And today, sporting the southwest corner map, playing in green, we've got LaSh playing as the English and his opponent. In the northeast, playing in purple, we have got Lord Voldemort, aka Demu, representing Team Liquid, playing in purple as the ayyubids. Welcome everyone to Gorge. An exciting matchup. The English versus the ayyubids, two incredibly strong civilizations. The English can be relatively flexible in terms of what they want to do in many matchups. Go for sort of an initial aggression, potentially. Going up against the ayyubids, though, Demu possibly thinking about posturing towards that Castle Age. It's a playstyle that actually has been taking over the ayyubids a lot recently, the early military wing into Castle Age. Getting the Desert Raiders out from the military wing just to buy some time, but the question is, would it be enough against a civilization like the English? With how aggressive they can potentially be. I think during this matchup, it does make sense to try and punish the ayyubids. If they do get to the Castle Age uncontested, it can be a bit tricky. Because of course then they can get the dervishes out and get those relics. It's a bit tricky on this map though because of how direct the axis can be. And how far forward that gold is, right? So a fast castle build play here for the ayyubids would be very risky. You would need at least 2 outposts and maybe even more than that. If the English do decide to be aggressive. But obviously we'll need to see what LaSh has up his sleeve and what he's thinking about doing in this matchup. Either way, hope you guys are having a great morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And hopefully having a great day. And having some great Age of Empires 4 today, hopefully. Two obviously very gifted players in the Age of Empires 4 scene. Demu has been in the S-tier tournaments. Pretty much all of them, I think, that we can remember. LaSh has always been knocking at the door of them. Hasn't necessarily made it into one, but he's, you know, right up there in terms of the top quality players that exist in Age of Empires 4 in the pro scene at the moment. So excited to see what kind of options he's going to go up with and use as the English. House of Wisdom can be built now. It'll be interesting to see what he actually goes up with, Demu. Will he go for the military wing into a second town centre or the Castle Age? Will he try and do the standard things at ayyubids? It could be risky. Now, we can see the villages on the berries actually kind of split up, so possibly even a growth wing, but sometimes players leave that for the Castle Age. Because whilst taking up to the feudal age, you get 3 villages for the growth wing, or the economic wing and the growth upgrade. But in the Castle Age, you get 8 villages, which is a hefty amount. Either way. Plenty of sheep being brought back by LaSh, that's for sure. 7 already. Not that he needs it right now, but he will as the game progresses. Of course, it's going to be that council hall. No real surprises there out of the English. And it's actually going to be growth, so he's going to go for the early extra villagers. Getting an additional 50 food. Now, unfortunately, that 50 food won't come in that little orchard, that berry bush that's just been taken. But of course, he will still get those 3 villagers. Using 3 villages to build the council hall. Pretty standard opening here for LaSh. It does look like he's going to be getting a couple of longbows out nice and early, which makes a lot of sense as the English. 3 villages on gold. Might be looking for a double broadaxe and then possibly moving the villagers away. Kind of interested to see that he's actually stayed with villages on gold. I imagine that's a nice play to do that because obviously quite heavy on wood. The English, they need the wood, even though they get cheaper farms. Of course, their longbows are relatively expensive on the wood side of things. So double broadaxe nice and early is incredibly helpful. And there is that lumber camp. Getting ready to research most likely. Gonna go for the mill as well. So possibly actually a wheelbarrow. I mean, yeah, I mean that possibly is the case because, you know, the mill in that kind of position is unlikely to be for berries and it's not necessarily likely to be for farms, considering how far wide it is. Unless he's very confident he's going to be very aggressive and then not really facing too much in his way. ayyubids going for the growth wing, so just see what the ayyubids look to do. It might even still be a greedy fast castle here for Demu. Look at it. Yeah, he is. He's getting double outpost. We kind of called it in that way, but interesting to see he places it on the side. And possibly those 3 villages that come from the House of Wisdom, we'll have to see where they go to. Going to get the stone already from the long distance mining from the villages. Getting prepped for Arislets, of course, and it will be a wheelbarrow opening. Maybe LaSh just keeps the villages there, right? Because he's going to keep getting upgrades most likely with those villages, and then it's not going to be a super fast push out with army, but you know, he's building up the economy and is slowly going to get the go for a timing push most likely. There's that first longbowman. A double outpost will actually really help protect this area, and it probably will be enough to get him to the Castle Age. We'll have to see. Of course, if he is in a pinch and he's in a struggle, he might in fact go for the culture wing to get there a little bit quicker. LaSh going to spot exactly what's up. And spot the 2 outposts and know that this has got to be a play into the Castle Age, right? Oh, she got a bit confused. 3 longbowmen looking to move out. Now that he knows that there's no military wing and there's no production building, right? You can't afford, like, when you scout this kind of an issue and this kind of timing, if someone's gone for double outpost, there's no way they're affording a production building. And so it's quite safe to go out with his 3 longbowmen at this stage, at least. It will be interesting to see what the first production building Demu actually puts down, or whether they just go straight for the castle edge. It looks almost like he might be going for that greedy play. First arrow slits has come in already. Second one about to come in relatively soon. Now, I would like to say a very big thank you for everyone supporting the channel, whether it be on Twitch or YouTube. You guys are absolute legends. Thank you so much. So the ticker's not working today. Okay, maybe scrap that. The names aren't ticking. I have to fix that out and see what's up with that in a minute. Longbowman, we're going to push the villagers off of berries, which is a bit of an issue because he needs that food, Demu. But he can rely on the sheep for now. It doesn't necessarily have all that many. And this could be a bit of a sticky situation, right? Because you definitely need that food. And will he look to try and get a couple of sneaky villagers on the berries? And that's exactly what he's done. Which makes a lot of sense, right? Because pushed off of berries back at home, you're definitely going to need that food. He's got the gold safe and secured. The missing ingredient, of course, will be the food. Now, LaSh playing for the boar on the edges of the map, which is a nice situation, because obviously the English can be very aggressive in terms of what they want to extract from the map at this point. Not really going to be contested, so it makes a lot of sense to get the rich sources of food. At least whilst he can. Because when the castle age does come in for the ayyubids, they do often have a lot of mobility. Could go for the camel lancers as an option. Gulam also an option. To see what he decides to do. I think camel lancers possibly is a bit more suitable. Like, whilst the longbows, of course, they're not exactly a hard counter by any means against Gulam for sure. They can still use their range and kite a little bit. The camel lancers, on the other hand, they charge on in and it can do a lot of damage. Bearing in mind, though, a barracks or two could help deal with that LaSh if he does come up against those camel lancers. Going to be adding a barracks. It will be the Gulam play, and LaSh has scouted that out nice and early. Just relocating the villagers on wood on the right side, and longbowmen haven't really been able to do too much just yet. Looks like LaSh maybe playing for the long game. He's actually going to be walling up, maybe playing a bit more greedy. Bear in mind though, whilst he is going to go to the castle age, he's probably unlikely to match the castle age of Demu, of course, because he has gone up with the culture wing and advancement. Going to be getting there with 400 less resources being used and also 20% faster. Blacksmith as well for some upgrades. Interesting that he went for the blacksmith instead of a mosque when he gets to the next stage. I mean, he probably will get a mosque obviously, but it might be a little bit delayed. But it does have a decent amount of wood income, to be fair. It should be okay. It should be alright for a mosque pretty instantaneously. Plenty of walls coming up for LaSh. This is a great spot, I gotta say. Boar Gold Deer Camp to be walling up. Does also wall in a relic for good measure. Of course, the relics are something that Demu's going to be looking to take, so maybe LaSh will posture towards these 2 relics here. These 2 relics are relatively close by, which actually makes it a little bit more easy for him to defend. Going to go with the King's Palace, no real surprises there, and it's a really nice landmark for the English. Going to scale that economy nice and quickly. But he's going to need to transition to farms relatively soon. Berries almost expiring, but boars still there to be fair, and 8 villages on that will sustain double TC production. Might need a little bit extra for the units, though. There's a double barracks. Likely to get iron undermesh? Yep. Makes a lot of sense to go for that for the first upgrade. Gives them a little bit more pierce armor, a little bit more armor to deal with the longbowman fire. And that's going to make the Gulam incredibly tanky. There's the mosque. That'll give them access to the dervishes, of course, to get them relics off the map. Go for the full wall up here. Alright, LaSh really going to look to make use of that King's Palace in the second town centre. It does take a bit of time, so, you know, obviously a lot of civilizations do go for a second town centre in the feudal age. This way, go for the second town centre in the castle age. Of course, you're already 9-10 minutes into the game, so, you know, there's a big difference between having a second town centre at, say, minute 5, as opposed to, say, minute 10. So we'll need a lot more time for that to pay dividends. Bear in mind, don't forget, the ayyubids actually had 3 extra villagers at the start of feudal age because of the actual tech up. Gulam trying to make their way through, but they're going to have to break through the walls first. And so this does buy some time for LaSh, and just as well, but bear in mind with the Council Hall, we can actually start to produce some crossbowmen, which is exactly what he's doing. I remember the times, guys, let me know in the comment section below on YouTube or even on the Twitch chat that Do you guys remember the time that council could not make crossbows? Those are scandalous times. But now, of course, they're a lot more well equipped to deal with these Castle Age pushers. Blacksmith going down, so it's going to be looking to get Steeled Arrow, no doubt about that, behind this. Relic situation, well, one's already being brought in by the ayyubids, and it's got full map control, so I'm a little bit concerned for LaSh's perspective here, considering, you know, he might be pushed off of all the relics, and 5 relics in a game, well, at least 4 relics, it would be 4 relics, so this one's obviously nice, safe, and secure behind the walls, but 4 relics could be dangerous. A couple more archery ranges being added in for Demu. Now, Gulam are forced to go home, and that's actually a really nice play by the English, because essentially what this has done, you know, Demu's actually kind of made some trade-offs. He's gone for the advancement for the culture wing, and that's a big decision to make. Obviously, he could have gone for a lot of other things, right? And instead, LaSh, with a couple of palisade walls, has kind of nullified that benefit. And more importantly as well, the investment into Gulam has been pretty extensive, but he's not been able to achieve all that much with it. And our palisades are, you know, they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but they're relatively cheap for what they achieve. And behind this, you know, obviously LaSh hasn't had to commit into too much military. He's pumping on 2 town centres, and of course now he's 4 villages ahead. That's going to scare well. So you feel like the longer the game goes, of course the English will have a greater economy. It does have to be wary in the short term, because of course only being 6 villages ahead, he's down on 3 relics. Quite likely to be 4th, and the bigger concern, well, additional concern really, is those sacred sites. You don't really want to be going too passive to not even contest those, because that's going to be a heck of a lot of gold coming in for Baltimore. And Demu going to go for the stone, and that's likely to be for a second town centre. The ayyubids actually do this relatively well. When they do hit up against a brick wall in the Castle Age, they can often get a second town centre just to catch up a little bit. It could be for a keep as well, but I think it's less likely for that to be happening. And this is going to go for a bit of a sacred site victory play. That's always an option. A bit more dicey one, right? Because then you always kind of... It's not like an all-in play in the traditional sense of actually being aggressive, but actually going for sacred site victory at this point isn't, in a sense, kind of an all-in play in terms of you got to play to that victory point, and if you don't, you probably end up losing. Because, of course, the eco for the English would then kick in at some point. Going to be looking to try and contest this 1 relic, so should at least get 2 out of the 3, which is actually not too bad. Good, I'm going to try and charge on through to try and take this relic. A couple of longbowmen, but I think the Gulam will be pretty happy with that. Look at how little damage that's done with that. Three sacred side, though, now has been capped for Demu. So the timer has been activated. That does force the issue there for a little bit for LaSh. Now the villagers will be under pressure. I mean, they should be able to be hit through the walls, I think. Does be, yeah, they are being hit. They're backing away. How's it going, Tack Dragon? Hope you're doing well in the Twitch chat. Dervish is going to come out to heal whatever is being damaged. So LaSh needs to get some crossbows here in quick time, actually, I've got to say. Got to try and focus on the Dervish first, which is definitely the right move. He does actually get it in the end, which is massive. The extra range on the longbowman really helping on that. Going to peel away the weaker villagers. LaSh is microing really well on that front, not losing anything just yet. Does send a crossbow. Dervish will need to back away, trying to contest the sacred site. Now, Demu doesn't actually have any army there, so that's actually a nice play. You should be able to push this army back, and it keeps the relics safe and secure. 3 relics, 3 sacred sites, and a second TC on the way. Demu is by no means out of this, or no means behind even. Might even be a little bit ahead. Now, what's kind of exciting for the ayyubids is that obviously he's up against a civilization that's playing very heavy infantry, you know, crossbowmen, longbowmen. Ayyubids can actually build siege on the field, so a mangonel actually at this point will be incredibly powerful. And it's very difficult LaSh could do about that. I mean, you would need to get a siege workshop to counter that. And I feel like the ayyubids actually, one of the reasons why I like ayyubids and the Abbasid dynasty, that particular tech, I feel like sometimes it's a bit underused. Is because just like how the Ottomans, they have the Janissary, a particular unit that forces your enemy to do something about it. Like, you go up against Janissaries as the Ottomans, you tend not to want to go to too many cavalry. In a similar way, the Mehmed Imperial Army for the Ottomans, they get the siege, the mangonel forces your enemy into spring walls almost instantaneously in the castle, because you kind of have to. You have to find a counter to it, right? Unless you want to go for cavalry yourself, which you kind of don't, because you can't go for, there's Janissaries involved. So it forces enemies of the Ottomans to go for siege. But in a similar sort of way, in a similar sort of fashion, the ayyubids, the threat of them getting a mangonel or manjanik in this sense, in the ayyubids, it forces the enemy into siege themselves. And so not only do you have a powerhouse unit as the ayyubids, it's forcing your enemy to do something they're not necessarily wanting to do, or not really wanting to... Yeah, they're having to react and be passive and change their game plan, maybe. Plenty of barracks though. One thing to bear in mind, the English can just zerg their way through, just pump out plenty of units to try and get surrounded the Mandrake with the highly armoured units. That's always an option too. It can be risky if there's a couple of crossbows assisting the Mandrake. And Sacred still active and running the timer. Does lose another dervish. Villagers coming out to get a defensive walls, like trying to build up a bit of a passageway through, well, blocking the passageway through to that sacred site, but unfortunately it hasn't been able to, and actually at the moment LaSh's army is looking pretty decent, although that Mandrake is looking a bit scary moving across, and the scout is there for LaSh. I love the scouting that LaSh has been doing. Throughout the whole game, by the way, in key moments he's noted certain things. He's noted the age up, he noted the play for the Mandrake at this point, which is huge, because now he knows that he might have to back away. He's got the sacred site timer down, and now he can back away. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a siege engineering, or a siege workshop rather, being placed down at some point for LaSh. It's imperative at this point because, you know, one Mandrake can scale to 2 and 3. Although there is that option for the man-at-arms, of course, taking the fight. Let's be careful. LaSh does have the man-at-arms there now, moving on through. Going to take a lot of the archer fire. Does have the wedge rivets coming at just the right time. Oh, but he dodges out of it. Nice micro there by LaSh. He's playing with fire though. He's got to be careful. Microing away against. He's doing it well. He's clearly been having practice. He's definitely microing this hugely well. Losing units though to the archers and backing away now. How's it going, Portuguese? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Welcome to the stream. Hope you had a good day. Plenty of wood coming in now for the English, so possibly looking to get some more production buildings. It's going to be double stable. Looking to maybe get some cavalry. There's some of the for the knights. Always an option. Decaps the central sacred site, and all of a sudden LaSh's presence on the map is getting a little bit more a bit more prominent. A third town centre for Demu, trying to catch up on the villager count. And that's actually kind of consistent with the way that the game has flown, like in terms of, yeah, I mean, essentially LaSh has been able to push out, and I think it's all really come down to that third town centre being added, right? Because Demu hasn't really been able to produce as much. Is he going for a cheeky Imperial Age? He's got plenty of food and gold in the bank, not really spending it at this point. Curious to see that, actually. It's floating a lot of gold. Going for the forward stone with the villagers. That walled up. Now, it feels like LaSh is actually quite comfortable just playing this with the units. Only one Mandrake to deal with so far. Wonder if that will change if there's any additional Mandrake coming on the way. Doesn't seem like it so far. Looks like Demu's quite content with just the one for now. Question about whether the Ibis can build walls with infantrymen and siege units too. Just the siege units. It's Delhi Sultanate that can build the walls with the infantry, but just the siege units on the ground. And in fact, with the military wing for the ayyubids, they can get the cavalry to build the siege units as well, which is a little bit weird, but it can be done. They get a springald of his own. Interesting choice that he went for that, because I don't actually see any siege from LaSh. Just doing it a bit blind, you're obviously kind of preparing for that. Because obviously there's a natural posturing towards that, right? You kind of expect LaSh to go for some of the springwalds. This is kind of clever though, because without going for springwalds, Demu's kind of anticipating, but ultimately LaSh isn't actually doing that. So that's quite a lot of investment into the springwalds themselves. 3 of them as well. Going for the counterplay, but not really countering anything because LaSh didn't go for the springwalds of his own in the end. Going to capture that sacred set once more. Will be taken out by this army moving forward, but that'll give him the attack notification, so Demu will be aware of what's happening. But it's a tricky situation because LaSh has a lot of units. Plenty of horsemen, plenty of man-at-arms, a couple of crossbows dotted in behind them. Now if the horsemen actually do get wraparound on the Mandrake, that could be huge. Does deploy, but actually the Mandrake hits most of the horsemen rather than the infantry behind it, and that's not really what they wanted to do. Getting a good wraparound. But that Mandrake, very nice and snug and secure. Man-at-arm trying to take down that front line for the ayyubids. Actually doing a decent job of it. Another mangonel shot, but LaSh actually micros away from it. in a great way, and he doesn't get hit in the end. And he takes out the magic, huge. And those spring lords pretty useless at this point for Demu. Man-at-arms attacking that front line. There are 3 outposts that he's having to deal with and fight under, but it takes a good fight generally. LaSh having to back away for now. I haven't taken the Manchnik down. I'll be happy with that threat now eliminated. I think to consider that, I'm not sure how aware LaSh is of the third town centre, because the economy now is going to be rocking and rolling for the ayyubids. They're going to get to keep in the central spot, which would be nice to actually be able to get that network of castles extended a little bit more. Trying to snipe a Springald, which is unfortunately unlikely to happen. He's going to be sending a heck of a lot of villagers to get this keep up. He's adamant he doesn't want to lose this one. 19 villagers on that. Better safe than sorry, I guess. Siege workshop just behind that. Maybe for some... It's interesting that's happening, actually, because bear in mind, you can actually build siege from the keeps. I'm not suggesting for a second that he doesn't know that. It just looks like he's going to go quite heavy on the siege, and understandably so, because he's got a decent army in front of him. Trebuchets could be a play. Going to get some stone walls on the west side, LaSh. Really carving up the map. And that's a nice position to do so, because there is a central neutral gold vein here, 4,000. That, of course, you want to save and secure if the game does go late. And, of course, he's got the back gold that he could be taking as well. Now, I wonder whether Demu will be needing to get some static defenses on the right side. I think LaSh is actually posturing towards that area just to see what's happening. I think the horsemen there planning to sort of hit this area here to see what's there. Taking that outpost down relatively soon. We'll be denying that vision for now. Keep is there as well. So maybe going to be retreating to that keep. Forcing Demu now to think about maybe getting some siege of his own. Maybe some rams, maybe some trebuchets. Either way, to move through the middle, he's going to have to get through that keep first. Siege workshop. Not actually building anything just yet. Can't afford it on the wood side of things. Now farming transition. It's starting to slowly eke out there on the back of the bases. In terms of the farming transition for the ayyubids, it started a little bit early, but it's getting there rocking and rolling. That means it's going to be a smooth transition. And the food income shouldn't drop too significantly. Bearing in mind, the English food income is going to be skyrocketing at this point. We're at the 22 minute, right? So yeah, take a look. It's almost 3,000 food per minute. Starting to make a move forward. Now still only 1 Manchnik on the field, and I think LaSh will be confident considering the moves he's been making in the game so far. Doesn't really feel like 1 Manchnik is going to be too much of a threat to him. Gets a trebuchet of his own. The 3 Springles though might try and snipe that trebuchet that LaSh has, so he does have to be a bit careful. The Springles are actually a lot more relevant now in the mid game. For Demu, that he preemptively built, he might even lose it now if the Springles get their way. He's moving further forward, and LaSh is not engaging. He's not threatening to engage. Oh, the Springles actually went for the army. I think he A-moved it there. Didn't actually focus fire on the trebuchet. Possibly a slight missed opportunity, although he might have lost the Springles if he did commit hard. He's still committing. It's going to be the Imperial Age. Berkshire Palace coming up on the right side to make sure that Sacred Site is relatively safe. But he afforded that very quickly, didn't he, LaSh? That's the power of the English farms. Bear in mind as well, he's going to be able to get enclosures. A really smart tech for the English. Going to be able to get gold every few seconds from each farm that's worked. And that's going to be very population efficient. We'll add some population efficiency, right, to it. It will help certainly a lot. Thanks, Elmstruck, for the follow. Appreciate it. Everyone on Twitch. Oh, 2 Manchnik now. So he's got to be a bit careful, right? Because LaSh... good thing he's got the Siege Workshop. I would be liking to see some Springles, I'll say. Because 2 Manchnik now is going to be a bit difficult to micro against. And with the second Trebuchet starting to slowly work through on that keep. LaSh is he's got a problem to deal with. Got the second Sacred Site. Which is certainly handy. There's that Imperial Age. There's no real rush for LaSh, though, I've got to say. Ultimately, at this point, he's going to be looking to get the tech ups and then maybe push on out. If anything, there could be a good timing window for LaSh if he does get the upgrades to the Imperial Age. The elite upgrades, really. And he can push out and do some damage. He's going to be breaking through the right side, and Demu might need to posture towards that side just so he doesn't leak units in and get raided by the horsemen. That's kind of a concern, actually. The good number of horsemen for LaSh. They're going to start to become elite. Is he upgrading the Man-at-Arms first? Yeah, he's going to go for the Man-at-Arms first, which is kind of understandable, right? That's kind of the powerhouse unit, although I'll be loving to see if he can get the horsemen up into the elite status. Tortilla, thank you so much for the subbage. Appreciate it. I really appreciate the support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Speaking of support, that Berkshire Palace is definitely supporting the fight on the right side. Demu is starting to focus it with 2 trebuchets, though. And so, whilst this, I love the play because it does buy time, right? LaSh won't want to lose the Berkshire Palace, that is for sure. But he's got a bit of time for those upgrades to come in. He's waiting. He's got the elite upgrade for the Man at Arms, possibly waiting for the elite upgrade for the Horseman, who's going to dive in. He's got the big power unit upgraded, to be fair. And elite army tactics could be really important, but it's still a minute and a half. I mean, does he sacrifice the Berkshire Palace? Does he get villagers to come out and repair? I don't think he's got enough time to wait for all the upgrades to come in. Maybe he's waiting for the elite upgrades for the Horseman dives in. Would he wait for elite army tactics? It's a dicey one. It's definitely a decision to make. Either way, he's going to raid with the Horseman, as we expected to happen. But Demu does keep on the right side to protect that farming economy just as well. Plenty of spearmen going to engage with the man-at-arms and crossbows. I mean, I'm not sure LaSh has enough here. The ayyubids make great use of the Manjanik, and there's no anti-siege here for LaSh. He's taking a bit of a battering on that front line of man-at-arms. They are elite man-at-arms after all. But he's got the counter unit, the crossbows. Even though they're in the castle age, they're still going to do great work on the right side. Most of the raid has fallen, but he's killed 21 villagers so far, which is definitely great. But the booming ability for the ayyubids back behind this is pretty hefty with the 3 town centers. Berkshire Palace almost about to go down, and I think it will. Does snipe out Springald with the Berkshire? Almost does, but the 2 trebuchets having to back away. Oh my god, has he kept that 10 HP, 1 HP of that Springald? Talk about timing to bring them away, eh? Craziness on the right side. They keep trying to raid, and maybe this buys time for the English to really start. Look, he's pumping, right? The economy's rocking and rolling, and with the Imperial Age now coming in for Demu, he needs to get those upgrades. They are coming in relatively fast, a couple of seconds away. And he'll be fighting on an equal footing, at least in terms of upgrades, or, you know, the tech of units. Enclosures coming in. A little bit late on that, I think, though. It was up to Imperial Age a little bit earlier, but LaSh will be getting it now. He was focusing on the fights, of course. Just constantly raiding a little bit on the west side. On the right side, mostly infantry units, of course, so they won't take too long to go down. He's actually getting a couple of villages, though. 34 taken so far. But Demu's population is still very healthy at 187, if anything. It's kind of doing him a favour, kind of unlocking some population space for military. Not that he has a huge bank of army for that to be hugely relevant at that point. Like, you do want to start losing villages at some point, but not maybe at this stage. Maybe wants a bit more of a bank of resources. Trebuchet's going to be sniped. There's the first one going down. Possibly going to lose a second if the horsemen start to go on it. No, he's going to actually just engage with the spearman. There it goes. He does now start to focus on that. Plenty of ranged units. If he loses the trebuchet, that's going to be a big picking off for LaSh. He does take it in the end. Very nicely done. Now he's going to back away and retreat and regroup and recover. He went with the economy wing for the Imperial Age, understandably so. Trade was always it can be an option. I think he's a bit concerned with the push coming in. There's a trebuchet in the middle, which is relatively unguarded. A couple of man-at-arms. You've got to be careful there, LaSh, not to lose that. Trebuchets, they are not cheap. Wait. How long has this been happening for, LaSh? The funny thing is, obviously, he's got a lot on his plate on the front lines. We have to keep an eye on that, guys. How many villages do we think that wolf's going to kill? He's got the elite desert raiders added in. He's raiding on the right side with the horsemen and man-at-arms. In fact, he's sending a lot here on the right side, committing heavily. Golvain has expired. Demu might start to move in the middle, though. Because, of course, this is pretty unguarded with that keep having been taken down. I've got to say, a lot of villages are going to be killed. There's only 15 slots inside the keep. This could be massive. Like, we talked about how he's got 3 town centers, so it could boom back if he does lose a decent number of villagers. But when you lose this many, that's going to be a bit of a hit on the economy, that's for sure. This is looking pretty decent. Oh yeah, apologies. Yeah, it would have been miniature wing actually to the Imperial Age. He did go eco-wing in the feud age. Good shout out there, Kai. Very good point. Man-at-arms still raiding pretty heavily. Pretty decent unit to be raiding with, of course, with a 3rd PS armor upgrade. But he's putting a lot of pressure in the middle. Now, the good thing for LaSh is if he can try and hold, his economy will be a lot more. Well, it's just a lot more solid at this point, right? He just hasn't lost as many villagers. 72 villagers have gone down for the ayyubids, and there still keeps plummeting on the right side of the farms. A lot of the infrastructure being taken down for LaSh, which is actually not necessarily a bad thing at this stage of the game, right? Because wood is not necessarily a big issue at this stage. It might become in the next 10-15 minutes, but not right now. And so he can probably replace those production buildings. But what Demu might struggle to replace is the hefty villager losses that he's been suffering. 94 so far. He's not been able to stem the bleeding so far. And, well, whilst a lot of the English units have been killed, still a couple fighting away. And now Demu is starting to make some inroads. It's going to start denying some farms. Villagers going northwards. Where are they off to? Going to go around the... Oh, that's kind of smart, actually. I like that play, right? Because the reason why that's smart, a lot of players would actually bring the villagers back home to the main base, but ultimately, you know, this way, it forces Demu to actually send units this way, and kind of a bit of a distraction, although they're pretty unguarded, so it could be a bit tricky, right? It could be tricky. Looking to go for the monastery to take down the relics. But he's still trickling in units on the right side, and it's caused so much damage. Demu down to 57 villagers, so this is kind of an all-in play, right? It doesn't have much food coming in at the moment, 1,000 per minute, and so this army is critical for Demu to make the most of. He's either got to do critical infrastructural damage or eco damage, but, you know, he might have to just try and win with this army. He's definitely going to have to buy time at least to reboom up again if that's his plan. Question is whether he's got enough. He's still killing quite a few villagers though, so LaSh has to be careful. Army in the north, a lot of it's been idled of course, now having to go on the other side of the stone wall. But LaSh has brought his army home, elite man-at-arms, a couple of horsemen chasing down the crossbows that are there. But it's getting decent value, 32 villagers killed by Demu, obviously not quite as much as he's lost. So excites have been decapped for LaSh, at least on the north and the central. Incendiaries is in now for the ayyubids, so going to be packing a little bit more of a punch. Man-at-arms kind of finding it difficult to make their way through the trees. A lot of farming economy going to be idled quite heavily here. But ultimately, as long as LaSh keeps the villagers alive as best as he can, idle time is going to be significantly less worse than losing them. Oh, 2 crossbows. Oh, these villagers. He's got to be careful not to lose them. Just the 2 crossbows could be hefty. Man-at-arms chasing this down away. He's kind of blocked here, Demu. So the man-at-arms should get their way of killing them. But ultimately, Demu's actually buying a lot of time by this. Oh, LaSh. He's not spotted it, has he? Oh, he has now. Just as well. He's lost a hefty amount. Oh, he's going to lose a trebuchet relatively cheaply there. The horseman diving on that, that's for sure. Using the horseman instead of the man-at-arms, of course, the right play. Still, I mean, Demu, he probably won't kill all of this, but might kill a decent amount. France being idle on the west side. Demu is starting to swarm on the west side as well, and there's a bit of economy here, that's for sure. LaSh is starting to lose villagers. He's got to be careful not to lose too many. All of a sudden, Demu is pushing hard. And back home, that third town centre, is he? Yeah, it's still got the third town, so nothing more. He's got his farming in the corners of the map. Villagers having to back away. He's not got the walls up again. That's where the breaching happened. But now things are starting to be a bit contained, right? Because LaSh is going to be able to start to focus on one entrance to his base. Everything else is walled up again. He's going to have to push out. He's been at home for quite some time. Farms being taken down, and Demu potentially think about could get the sacred site if he's got a dervish at some points nearby. How's it going, Hope Horizon? Hope you're doing well. Now, what I hope for this game is that it doesn't end soon, because this could go on for a while. Bear in mind, Demu has started to catch up with villagers again, up to 81, and obviously countered a little bit by the fact he killed so many. Trying to get a keep on the north, protect the gold. There is also the bull, which obviously he can't take as the ayyubids, but he's also got the deer camp in the far north that he could potentially take, or was looking to maybe earlier on. Alrighty, man-at-arms going to be pushing on in. Ah, Hans was using the Japanese builders. Hope it wasn't too confused. I tried to make the builds relatively simple, but fair enough, fair enough. Hopefully he figures a nice way to do it. I was watching him play earlier, actually. So if you guys don't know, if you're watching on YouTube later, Hans is a company of heroes. Well, I mean, I'm sure he does other games as well, but I think that's what he's most known for. At least what I know him for. He's starting to play Age of Empires 4, which is fantastic. Great to see new community members playing. Oh, Desert Raiders gonna be. Wait, LaSh, turn around. He's gonna fight with the man-at-arms. Great. Village backing off, and he needs to deal with these Desert Raiders on the west side. It's kind of annoying that he's gonna have to deal with this. The big issue for LaSh is mobility, right? It doesn't really have it on his side. It does have powerhouse units though. Oh, Desert Raiders getting good hits on these. Ultimately, though, the man-at-arms tanking quite heavily. Right side relatively safe now. Left side as well. Raiding has pretty much stopped. Down in the middle though. Man-at-arms have been whittled down in numbers, but still a hefty number of them. Gonna go on the farms now. Ah, he's playing versus Abbasid and panicked at how fast they can go to Castle Age. Yeah, for sure. The asymmetry of the civilizations in Age of Empires do mean that players can take up to different ages at different times, for sure. And it can be quite alarming, especially with the units that they unlock. Kind of like happened here, or at least the ayyubids today in this game tried to get that tech up to the Castle Age and put some pressure with the Gulam. Wasn't able to today. Alright, quick question to check the stats of the Desert Raiders. There we are. Oh, he's chasing down with a lot of spearmen. They're going to tank a little bit against the Man-at-Arms, but he's going to mostly need them for the Knights. They have got the elite upgrades now, so they're going to push on in. Got to be careful not to directly engage with the spearmen with those, though, but he's got the mobility, so he can do that as long as he's paying attention. Trying to get an outpost on the right side. Won't quite manage it. I wonder if he's going to commit to... Yeah, he actually rebuilt the Berkshire Palace. Smart move, because he had the time to do so. He's got most of his production. I love the actual posturing production. He lost his production here on this side. It was a lot of it here. There we go. See the ruins of it. But now he's placed it on the right side behind the Berkshire. A little bit more protection, of course. Well, a lot of more protection. He's going to try and raid the gold in the north. I think the issue about the map now is protecting gold, and Demu recognizing that too is going to get to keep on the right side, and gold is going to be important. I think now a key for LaSh to win this game is continue trying to raiding this gold in the north and try and deny this as well. But Demu's got good stranglehold on with the two keeps, that's for sure. Holy smokes. That's a hefty army. Cavalry charge on in with Man-at-Arms on the front end. Hand cannoneers behind them for the English. That could do a lot of damage if it's not jumped on. But the Desert Raiders do have a ranged attack. Oh, with 3 mangonels there. This time it's the English's turn to get the mangonel shots, and a massive shot on the crossbows on the back line. Trying to get on top of them with the Desert Raiders. There are a couple of springles, but hand cannoneers going to demolish those cavalry. And the Man-at-Arms tanking, making sure those mangonels stay alive. He needs to keep the mangonels alive, and if he does, the crossbow mass on the back line going to be taken down really fast. Demu losing that army in a big way. Mostly spearmen survive for the ayyubids, but I mean ultimately they're going down pretty quickly with those Man-at-Arms chasing. Still 3 mangonels survive, 3 springles as well. This is a massive siege ball that actually, I love the fact that he's done this. Another trebuchet heading forward as well, and LaSh has got plenty of units. It's starting to move on the middle of the map, and he's starting to gain momentum. This is where things could start to steamroll. Like, he's got 200 population, but he's only got 88 villages. We talked about it earlier in the game where there is a point where actually you do want to cut down on the villages and maybe get the army numbers up compared to the opponent. And it looks like LaSh is doing just that. 88 military. And he's starting to move further forward. The big problem for Demu is that whilst he might possibly be able to challenge the infantry here, how does he challenge all the siege? 3 springles, 3 mangonels. What does he have cooking at home? Mostly cavalry. Mostly elite horsemen. And that's not looking good. He's going to need to actually try and get a wraparound on the side if he can, on top of the siege. And whilst Demu preemptively built those springles earlier, he's definitely going to be wishing he had springles now. To go for the landmark, to be fair. I mean, there's only 2 landmarks for the ayyubids. He could potentially try and snipe them. He does have I think he had a couple of trebuchets on the way as well. There's one at least. Desert Raiders trying to get some value there. I mean, I don't think LaSh really cares about that at this point. Going on the right side to try and deny the gold a little bit, but boiling oil will help that situation. Going to be trying to torch. Oh, but he did come in from the right side. LaSh wasn't paying attention for a second. We talked about the threat of this, actually. This is probably the one way that Demu comes back. And he snipes so many of them. LaSh must be kicking himself right now, because this is always a threat. Oh, no, he lost everything in terms of siege. That's not great, but he does have a decent army still fighting. Spearmen against the cavalry. Man-at-Arms has been tanking up against everything else. He still has a strong army, LaSh. So whilst he lost all the siege, which is definitely not what he wanted, he still might win this fight in a big way. Numbers are starting to be thinned down. He's taking them out though. I mean, he's okay for now. He might have to back away with what he's got, LaSh. Although he's got a lot more reinforcements coming. I think the big thing is pushing on the right side. This is huge. Villagers being denied on gold, and the income is kind of struggling on gold for Demu. It's being halted now. It wasn't for a while ago. It was about 2,000 income per minute. Still got the gold on the north, of course. He's starting to get momentum. LaSh is really pumping out units. He's got a lot of production coming on in. There's a lot of its cavalry as well. Going to be trying to snipe and cover him, but villagers are starting to repair that. Keeps it alive for now. Demu is still holding. And this is where things are a bit tricky, right? So whilst he possibly did have a lower villager count and that allowed more population supply for LaSh, tell you what, he's struggling on food again. Man-at-Arms moving in the middle of the map. He's going to be grouping up together for another push, possibly. But that clutch play by Baltimore, by Demu, just coming from the right side on top of the siege. And that was a big play. That keeps him in the game for now, at least. That's unfortunate for LaSh not to keep that army and that siege protected. Continues to send a couple of man-at-arms. Gold has actually expired there, so this is going to be a critical area. This is kind of the last gold that the ayyubids have. Now, short of starting up trade, it's very difficult for Demu to gain any more gold. He's got 3 relics, to be fair. That will help a little bit. Of course, the English do have enclosures. They've had it for a while. Now, bear in mind, Demu is still out mining gold, is still out gathering, despite even enclosures. It's not what it used to be. Enclosures used to be an incredibly strong technology, a lot stronger than it is now, but it does keep some gold trickling in, which is the main thing for LaSh. It's been a bit of a quiet. It's probably a bit of a quiet before the storm, and that storm might just be building up right now. Demu heading on in with the cavalry, going to take the outpost first, going to deny the network of castles. Benefits was actually huge. Takes engagement before that happens, but it does now expire. Well, I think he's still being influenced by whatever's behind. Hand cannoneers behind. Man-at-Arms tanking that front line. Demu trying to win the engagement. I'm not so sure he has enough. Like the premium units from the English going to start to overrun. It's mostly spearmen for Demu. That's not ideal. Well, starting to push on forward. Well, it was anyway. Now, Demu starting to back away. Does have a culverin, looking to try and snipe any siege that's on the way, but there's not that much happening in terms of siege, at least for LaSh. A decent army pushing on forward, and I think the big concern for Demu is the quality of these units, right? It's got horsemen and spearmen, whereas up against man-at-arms and hand cannoneers, there's a world of a difference, right? So an engagement here could be tricky. Rams coming in on the right side, trying to take down the keep. Will be sniped by the horsemen charging on in. I think LaSh could feel a bit confident about his army because he's got a great army behind. He's got 3 sacred sites as well, so there's no real necessary pressure for him to push on out because ultimately it's Demu that needs to move on out and deny the sacred sites if he can. So the Berkshire on the right side. Got the stone walls on the left. That kind of leaves the middle to be challenged by Demu. And all the while, don't forget, the amount of gold coming in for LaSh is pretty decent. Demu won't have as much gold. Of course, he's running out of gold on the map. The late game English is still pretty strong in this regard. Diving in with horsemen, hand cannons as well, man-at-arms. Spearmen heading in the west direction, trying to get better raids, it seems. Let's have a car firing underneath the keep, which is not ideal for LaSh, but I think it should be fine. Just the clear quality of his units. Man-at-arms pushing on in. He's going to rip through everything. Hand cannoneers behind him. So many of them, by the way. He's getting so much value, and Demu's going to lose that army. And I think with this, he might just lose the game. LaSh taking that hill heavily with the English man-at-arms. They're charging on through. There's not much in his way now. That meat shield on the front lines for the ayyubids pretty much non-existent. Just the culverin remains. Man-at-arms are going to go on top of the culverin. And Demu, in a blink of an eye, has gone down to 26 military. That's a massive push by LaSh. He just had the better quality army, and he's raiding in the north as well. They've got the presence of mind to send units. That means that Demu does have to address that and send some units if he can. Trading had started. Got about 14 of them for Demu. That's a bit of gold coming in. That's probably going to be harassed now. Man-at-arms sent on the right side. Still trickling on the west side with some hand cannoneers. He's going to deny the trade. Outpost going on the west side. And that's huge because that's going to have a cannon emplacement. That means the trade has been stopped pretty much. Or will be before too long. And this is an issue. He's going to have to somehow deal with that hand cannoneer mass, but I'm not so sure how. He does have 52 military, so starting to build up the numbers again. It's unlikely that they're particularly premium units, not when he's only got 16 gold in the bank. LaSh moving in with another ram as well. The right side has been secured on the farms, but here comes in again with another batch of horsemen. Diving on in, taking the hand cannoneers. There's so many horsemen now on the west side. LaSh still at 90 military, and he's pumping. Big thing for Demu is that he's got a decent amount of economy here with the villagers on food. He's got a lot of villagers, but those are going to start to plummet in numbers for sure. Look at the constant trickle of those units. LaSh actually has enough for a keep. Can be getting an outpost, maybe some cannon placements when they do go up. Oh, and cannoneers behind the cavalry, and that's going to be ripped through, I think. I don't think Demu wins that in any way. He's going to take another bad fight, and they're starting to escalate. Man-at-arms coming from the north, another group of horsemen and spearmen behind them. On the right side, sending another group of horsemen and man-at-arms. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. LaSh takes down a giant in Demu on Gorge. And a great game of Age of Empires 4 could have gone either way at one point, but ultimately, LaSh was seeing out the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and see you next time.